We will start the inaugural press conference by Minister Kamikawa. Initial remarks, please. I have been appointed the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Since Minister Kaguchi Yoriko, I am the first woman foreign minister in almost 20 years, and I acknowledge I have been offered the opportunity to serve an extremely important role. I look forward to working with you all. I will leverage the past achievements of Japan's diplomacy established by my forerunners, including former Minister Hayashi, and I'm determined to do my utmost to deal with the serious issues. At a time when we are at a turning point in history, Japan holds the presidency of the G7 and is a member of the UN Security Council and is in a responsible position to lead the international community. Next week, there will be the extremely crucial UN General Assembly and related events. I shall fully prepare myself and will demonstrate Japan's presence on the big stage of the United Nations and will endeavor to establish trust and confidence between my counterparts of respective countries. I will continue to lead the international community by a uniquely Japanese approach of diplomacy. Having said so, as the foreign minister, the following 3 points will be emphasized. Firstly, to firmly defend the national interest of Japan. With the Japan-US alliance as the foundation of national security, diplomacy and defense will be coordinated, and our national territory, territorial sea, and territorial air will be steadfastly defended. Secondly, to listen attentively to raise the presence of Japan by leveraging the science and technology of Japan, and the responses to infectious disease and UHC will be promoted. I will maximize the soft power of Japan and will deal with various global challenges and will exert our leadership. And thirdly,
we will intently listen to the voices of the Japanese people. Japan's diplomacy should be supported by Japanese people, so we will stand alongside the Japanese people by listening to their voices. I will promote diplomacy which is supported by the Japanese people based upon evidence. To conduct such diplomacy of depth, it is crucially to radically strengthen resources to implement diplomacy, including human resources, public finance, digital transformation or DX, as well as promotion of work style reform. As a woman cabinet member, I would like to utilize my perspective in unique to a woman in considering an ideal organization and work style reform. I will firmly develop an environment where officials can unlock their full potential and tackle diplomatic challenges as a team. Between now and the end of the year, important diplomatic events are scheduled, including APEC Leaders Summit meeting and Japan-ASEAN Commemorative Summit meeting. Because of tumultuous times we live in, it is necessary to uphold high ideals without being overwhelmed and never forget the long-term view, not just considering immediate future in conducting a diplomacy, while recognizing that there is a journey of thousands of miles in vast ambition ahead of us. As the new Minister for Foreign Affairs of Japan, I will exert all my efforts to further develop the Kishida diplomacy thus far. That's all from my side. Thank you.
please raise your hand if you wish to ask your question. If you are invited, please come forward to the microphone. Please tell us your name and affiliation before the question. Asahi Shimbun. Matsuyama, Asahi Shimbun, thank you. This is your inaugural press conference. Once again, I would like to ask you, you have been appointed the foreign minister, Ms. Kamikawa. First of all, at what timing did you receive the communication from Prime Minister Kishida, and what was the instruction by the Prime Minister? And my second question, the former minister was Mr. Hayashi, and you are from the same Kochi-kai faction, the important position of the foreign minister is continued by a member of Kochikai. What is the meaning of that? And my third question is, this year Japan holds the presidency of the G7, and within that position, the foreign minister is to be changed. Do you feel any important difficulties or hurdles? From Prime Minister Kishida, at what timing was there communication from the Prime Minister through the series of this personnel reshufflement? There was a message from the Prime Minister. From the Prime Minister, it was yesterday that in light of the accumulated relationship with various countries, I should treasure this relationship and I should work hard in Japan's diplomacy, that I am going to replace Minister Hayashi at this particular timing. You have asked this question. I shall refrain from discussing that aspect. When the world is at a turning point in history, former Minister Hayashi has achieved a huge achievement, including responses to aggression of Ukraine and G7 and other matters. It was a huge achievement. Now, at this moment, I am appointed as the foreign minister. I am bracing myself to take on this huge responsibility. But after all, I have to carry on the efforts of Minister Hayashi, and I would like to leverage my perspective as a woman in diplomacy about the organization or the reform of work style and other areas. So first of all, next week there is the vital event of the United Nations High-Level Week. So for Japan, this is a very important big stage for Japan at the UN, and I would like to demonstrate the presence of Japan. So although time is limited, I will prepare hard, and I would like to establish trust and confidence with my counterparts of respective countries. I am strongly determined to do so.
はい、次のご質問どうぞ。ではニューヨークタイムズ上田さん。
Next question, New York Times, please. Ueno of New York Times, about work style reform and a perspective unique to a woman, to be specific general positions and ordinary positions, you're going to increase the number of women officials, or perhaps you can increase the number of woman ambassadors. If these things are possible domestically and internationally, what is the significance and what sort of impact will it have on the presence of Japan? I have been appointed as a woman cabinet member this time around, and the significance of that is that in the political area in Japan, there is a major challenge of a gender gap. I belong to the LDP, and there is a target for the next 10 years. The proportion of women lawmakers should become 30%, and the Prime Minister himself has stated that women's empowerment is one of the top priorities. Against this backdrop, I am painfully aware of the significance that I am taking such a position as one of the woman cabinet members. Regarding the work style reform, I referred to it in my remarks and a woman's viewpoint. And what should I do about it? I have received some specific messages, and under the former minister, I understand that initiatives have been made. So going forward, I'd like to be thoroughly briefed and receive explanations, and while prioritizing actions, I would like to start my efforts considering all these points. Furthermore, in the international community, Japan is a non-permanent member of the UNSC, so Women, Peace and Security WPS initiatives back in 2000 were resolved at the UNSC, so I would like to make my efforts around this area as well. There are various areas, and I will listen to all sorts of voices with my perspective as a woman, I would like to maintain this viewpoint and make efforts. Thank you.
では共同通信
Next, Katsurada-san, Kyodo News. Katsurada, Kyodo. This is the question about the relationship with China. Currently, because of the discharge of Alps-treated water, there is a confrontation between China and the spokesperson of Chinese Foreign Ministry, Mao Nin, mentioned yesterday about the need for a constructive and stable relationship. As you have become the foreign minister, what is your policy and vision of diplomacy with China? Regarding your question, between Japan and China, there are a large number of issues and concerns. However, with regard to the overall Japan-China relationship, Japan will assert what has to be asserted. We will firmly request China to act responsibly. We will accumulate a multiple careful dialogue, including on matters of concern. We will cooperate over common challenges and promote the establishment of constructive and stable relationship by effort of both sides. That, I think, is important. With regard to this policy, this has been a consistent policy of the Kishida administration, and therefore I will continue this policy in the Japan-China relationship.
The next question, please. Hokkaido Shimbun newspaper, Araya-san, please. Araya of Hokkaido Shimbun newspaper about diplomatic posture vis-à-vis Russia after the invasion of Ukraine started. Russia has sharply reacted to Japan's sanctions and has abolished a visa-free visit framework and so on, and is becoming more hardline. What is the recognition about the position of Russia's diplomacy? What's your idea about future diplomacy vis-à-vis Russia? And it was mentioned that the resumption of the visits to the graveyard is one of the top priorities. What is your view about the approach for the resumption? Are you also planning to visit Nemuro for a site visit and so on? Well, thank you very much for your question. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is an outrage that shakes the foundation of the international order, and Japan, in collaboration with the international community, including the G7, has been advancing diplomatic initiatives by imposing strong sanctions against Russia, so we will continue to do so. At the same time, Japan and Russia are neighboring countries. For example, in the areas such as economic activities, such as fishing and maritime safety matters, where Japan and Russia should address as neighboring countries. For the overall diplomacy of Japan, from the viewpoint of what will serve the national interests of Japan, we will make appropriate responses. Regarding the Northern Territories issue, by resolving the territorial disputes and signing a peace treaty is the policy, and I will maintain this. And regarding the resumption of four-island exchange programs, including the visits to the graveyards, this is one of the top priorities for future Japan-Russia relations. Former islanders are now advanced in age, and to address their feelings by all means, and we will request the resumption of the programs, especially with emphasis on Northern Territories graveyard visits to the Russian side. There was a question about my business trips based upon the future diplomatic events. I'd like to make appropriate responses. Thank you.
それで NHK
NHK, Uda-san. Igarashi, NHK. This is about the summit between North Korea and Russia. Chairman Kim Jong-un has expressed his support for aggression of Ukraine. President Putin implied the provision of missile and weapons. Military relationship is emphasized between the two countries. Once again, I would like to seek your observation and the policy of the government of Japan's response. On the 13th of September, I am aware that there has been a Russia-North Korea leaders summit in Amur of Russia. As I did discuss last evening, with regard to the outcome of the leaders summit, the government of Japan is not in the position to respond. However, there is a possibility that it may lead to a violation of relevant UN Security Council resolutions that fully ban procurement of weapons and related supplies from North Korea, and I'm following carefully with concern. With regard to Russia's aggression of Ukraine, this is totally unacceptable. So far, we have been requesting to third parties that support should not be provided to the Russian military, and in view of these perspectives, I will continue to follow up carefully with concern. At any rate, Japan's position is that we will continue to collect and analyze relevant information, and in order to fully implement the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, we will closely collaborate with the International Committee, including US, ROK, and other countries.
日程ございますので、会見以上とさせていただきます。
That's all for today's press conference because of the next engagement of the Foreign Minister. Thank you.